When I was a kid, I absolutely despised school. I hated it. The only thing that I liked about it was that I get to spend a bunch of time with my friends. And as a result, I was kind of like the class clown. I would always get into trouble. I would just make people laugh, do crazy, dumb stuff, and end up getting in a lot of trouble. Well, fast forward, it kind of left me in a position where I just felt so lost in my life, right? I felt like I was spending all this time to make other people laugh, make other people happy, but I didn't know what I wanted for myself. And I kind of continued down that path. I was surrounded by the same type of people my whole entire life. And I just kind of felt boxed in. I felt like I had this reputation. I couldn't break out of it. So the only choice was to keep continuing down. And I grew up without a dad, with a single mom and a sister in the household. And I just really felt lost my whole entire life. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to do school. I knew that I just wanted to have fun with my friends, make good memories, and I just had no idea what I was going to do as a career. I knew that school wasn't really a sustainable path for me. I knew that since the age of like 5 years old, right? I always hated school. I was one of those students where even though I hated school, if I really put my mind to it, I could still pass and get pretty good grades, all A's, all B's, whatever, right? But I just hated it. I was one of those kids that if I wasn't really fully into something, then I wasn't going to excel at it, right? I can only force myself to do something I hate for so long. And eventually, after, being in that town and being in that school system for a while, after my freshman year of high school, I moved to a different town. The town was only 30 minutes away, but surprisingly, it kind of changed my whole entire life just moving to that town. And at this new town, I didn't have a car at the time. I was still like a freshman in high school. So I wasn't able to see my friends from back home as much. And I had to go to a completely new school, completely new town that I've never been at. And it was just kind of like a big life changing moment for me. And in the moment, I hated it. I rebelled. I got in trouble at my new school. I got bad grades. And I just kind of did the same thing. I was a class clown and I was just joking around all the time. And I didn't take school seriously. But eventually, I started, putting more effort into school because the new school that I went to, everyone was much smarter. There was much higher standards. So as a result, I kind of followed the pack and I, focused on getting good grades. And I did. I feel like I did all the right things. I ended up graduating with a really good GPA, 3.8, but I still didn't get into any of the colleges I applied to, right? And that really bummed me out. I never really wanted to go to college and I always knew that school wasn't a sustainable path, but I felt like at the very least, if I got into a good college, I would have something to look forward to. Maybe I could meet some cool people. Maybe I could make some cool memories and some cool friends. But that never ended up happening for me, which is okay. But as a result, I had no idea what to do. I knew I couldn't get any good jobs without a college degree. My parents were breathing down my neck, so I felt like I had to go to college. So what did I do? I ended up enrolling in a community college, which in the beginning, I hated it because all my friends were off going to college, in different states or whatever, being able to make all these cool memories, meet these cool people, make new friends that they could be friends with for the rest of their lives. And I was still stuck at home. It literally felt like worse than high school. It felt like I was that one bum that was like 30 years old with no job who's still hanging out with like 20-year-olds in his hometown and just stuck there forever, right? That's how I felt. And in reality, there's nothing wrong with going to community college. That's just how it made me feel. It made me feel trapped and it made me feel boxed in, right? It made me feel like I was just stagnating my growth as a human being and just staying behind while everyone else was moving forward. And I was so lost. I had no idea what to do. So I just did the online classes. I worked a part-time job at the gym and eventually it all just became too much. It felt like every single day I was just wasting my life away. It felt like I was built, and I feel like I just had such a greater purpose in my life than to just keep doing these monotonous, just repetitive, boring, meaningless tasks like doing online school where I was just cheating on all my work, where I hated the major I was doing, going to my job at the gym where I was just scanning people's phones in all day, barely had any social interaction and just was barely getting paid any money at all, right? I just hated my life. I was so depressed. I was so stagnant in my life and I just felt super, super lost. So I decided to take a break from school, take some time off, and I got a new job at a car dealership. It was actually a Honda dealership, and I was just driving around cars, and I had a buddy who already worked there, so it was fun getting to kind of reconnect with him, spend some time with him, and also kind of get myself into a new environment. And this new environment honestly brightened up my world. It was a lot more flexible, I had a lot more freedom. I was able to meet a lot more people, have cool conversations with a lot of people I would have never got to meet, and it honestly gave me a lot of hope. But eventually I decided that, this job, I can't work here forever. Basically, it only paid $15 an hour. I was only making basically $2,000 to $2,200 a month, which is not sustainable to live off of forever, right? At the time, if you're a part-time college student, whatever, of course that's sustainable, but long term it was not a viable option. So I decided to start college again, but this time, instead of going to a community college, I went to a college in my local area. It was kind of like a commuter school. It's only 10, 15 minutes away from my house, but it honestly felt the exact same as a community college. All the kids that went there were just commuting from home. None of the people really lived on campus. There wasn't much to do. Like, if people were hanging out, they were hanging out off of campus. And I just found it kind of like a waste of time and a waste of money, honestly. Same feelings I had towards community college. I didn't like what I was studying at school. I felt like it was kind of pointless. I was studying business because I've always found myself kind of entrepreneurial, and I thought that if I studied business, I would learn how to start my own. But it just seemed like it didn't really correlate. The dots didn't connect for me. I felt like I that you don't necessarily need to get a formal education in order to start your own business or to be an entrepreneur, and it's best to learn from people that have actually done it, not people that just get paid to teach about it, right? I was always someone that learned by doing, not learned by, you know just hypothetically thinking about something, right? I needed to physically do it with my hands, or I needed to try and fail in order to learn. That's always been the type of person I am, but like I said, I was still very lost at this point. I knew that the degree I was doing in college wasn't going to work. Couldn't see myself really working a 9 to 5 office job, and I just knew that I was meant for something greater. So I dropped out of college again, but this time was the last time. I ended up working at that Honda dealership full time, and then while I was there, I ended up applying for my local fire department. And this is kind of where everything changed, right? I applied for the fire department, and at first they didn't take me because I failed one of the tests. I had to wait a couple months, and then I reapplied. And this time I made it through all the tests. It took a very long time. It took like 8 months, and I didn't even know necessarily if this was something I really wanted to do. I just knew that it was more aligned with my interest, right? It was more kind of a blue collar job. It had a lot of camaraderie. You get to make cool connections with people. You're helping your community. The pay was pretty good. It was pretty much the most amount of money I could make without getting a college degree. And benefits were great, right? The schedule, great. Everything seemed amazing. So I ended up getting all my references from the Honda dealership, and I was able to get this job for the fire department. And as soon as it was time to leave the Honda job and go to the firefighter job, it felt like such a huge relief off of my shoulders. It really did feel like my new life, like my actual life that I was meant to live, was just now starting, right? It felt like I could finally leave all this behind. I could leave all this starting and stopping school, wasting all this time, these 4 years just starting and stopping school, working part-time with these like kind of crappy jobs. I could leave that all behind finally, and now is my time to just really find my purpose in life and to put my all into this new job. And that's exactly what I did. I prepared very hard. I was very physically fit and very mentally prepared, and as soon as I entered the fire academy, literally my first 2 weeks there, I ended up getting a potentially career-ending injury. I tore my ACL. It was a complete tear. It was literally the first 2 weeks in there. It was very embarrassing, and I basically was forced to basically not be able to work. And I had to get surgery. I had to get an MRI. I had to do all of that fun stuff, and all the expenses were being covered because I did get injured at work, but it would mean that I wasn't able to actually do my job for at least a year. And in that moment, man, I felt so terrible. I was questioning everything. I was questioning God. I was questioning my purpose. I was like, it was finally felt like it was my time to do something great and something meaningful with my life. And as soon as that time happens, it's like everything is taken away from me from something so unlucky. The way I got injured just is so absurd and unlucky that it just had me questioning everything. I was doing jumping jacks, warming up for PT in the morning, and I literally, while I was mid jumping jack, I just tore my ACL completely. I fell to the ground. I couldn't walk. My knee kept buckling, and it just was so random and unexpected, especially for me. I was so physically prepared. I mean, that's the number one thing I focused on prior to the fire academy. And it just felt like all this stuff that I had worked so hard for so long was just taken away from me like that. And it just was the worst feeling ever. I felt like I just felt like I didn't want anyone to help me. I didn't want anyone to feel bad for me. I just was so distraught, and it just made me feel like everything is just like, what is even the point of all this, right? I just worked so hard. I just left all this stuff behind, and now that I finally have my chance, this happens, something this unlucky, and I just felt so, lost in that moment. I was like, is this really what I didn't know if I should see this as a sign to not do this, if this is a sign to just work harder, get back, and continue doing this and not to give up. I didn't know what to think in that moment, and the whole recovery process honestly sucked. But now that I am pretty much fully recovered, I have a lot of kind of, looking back on it, I'm very appreciative of that time, right? It taught me that you never know what can happen. No matter how hard you work for something, no matter how hard you think you deserve something, it can be taken away from you like that. It made me more appreciative for the little things, like just being able to walk normally with no pain, just being able to do jumping jacks, just being able to go on a run is a privilege at the end of the day. So it gave me a lot more gratitude for the little things in life, and it also gave me a perspective, right? At least I was able to still get paid during this whole year that I was injured. At least the county isn't going to fire me and make me reapply. At least I still have a chance to get back and to get better. And I have such a clear purpose now. Like, I'm going to give my everything for this job. I'm going to become a firefighter. I'm going to make a difference in my community. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do good things. I'm going to work towards becoming a better person one day at a time. And I'm going to just do something meaningful with my life, right? I'm going to make a difference. And if you guys are lost, if you guys don't want to go to college, if you guys don't know what your purpose is, just think about doing something where you can make an impact and you can really feel that impact that you're making, right? The problem with me is all my life I was doing so many things that, one, I didn't care about, and two, felt meaningless. This is the first time in my life where I'm doing something that I can directly see the impact and the meaningfulness in front of my eyes, right? It's so obvious that firefighters and anyone that works for the fire department is obviously making a huge difference in their community, whether it's helping people, whether it's putting out fires, whether it's doing fundraisers and going out and inspiring kids. They make such a big impact. So if you're lost in your life, find something that's meaningful and impactful, right? It doesn't have to be impactful for your community. It doesn't have to be becoming a firefighter, but just find something that's meaningful towards you. Find something that makes you feel good when you do it, whether that's helping people out, whether that's helping yourself out, whether that's doing something physical, whether that's doing something mental or educational. Just find that thing for you that makes you feel good about yourself and makes you feel good about what you did, right? You want to feel proud and accomplished after you did your work. And now I can fully and confidently say that I do feel very happy, hopeful, and purposeful, right? I don't feel lost anymore. I feel like I have a very, very clear path on what I should do. And that's something I recommend too. Find a career or find a hobby that has a very, very, obvious path that you can go down. There's progression to it. You do this, and then once you do this enough, you can go to the next step and the next step and the next step. Find something like that, right? Because us humans, we crave progression. We like to see ourselves getting better, and we like to have little miniature goals that can keep, bringing us higher and higher and higher. But I was so lost my whole entire life, and I was always so confused why I couldn't find my purpose. I felt like I was a good person. I felt like I was a hard worker. I felt like I didn't have any intentions with anything that I did, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And my problem was I kept forcing myself to go down this path of college, and as a result, I ended up just wasting 4 years of my life. I wasted 4 or 5 years just starting college, stopping college, working, and that cycle just kept repeating and repeating. And looking back on it now, it's honestly my biggest regret. Going to college is my biggest regret. I wish right out of high school I had just kind of had the balls and had the confidence and the bravery to just pursue a career such as firefighting, or pursue anything in that fact that actually made an impact, instead of just doing what everyone in my ear was telling me to do. And if you guys are watching this video, this isn't necessarily like advice, but if you were in a similar situation, just consider this perspective that I'm offering you guys. This has made the biggest impact, is just chasing something that's actually meaningful. All right, peace, bro.